Hello, I don't know if you noticed this, but recently I uploaded my 500th episode, which is a bit difficult to say, but I've now made over 500 episodes for this podcast. And I've been so busy lately with family things that I didn't notice. So today I thought I'd talk a bit about how the podcast got started, and then towards the end of the episode I'll tell you about what I think is the best way to use this podcast to improve your English listening ability. Okay, so first of all, I started this podcast back in the year 2000 it was. So I've been doing this for 6 years now. And when I started it, I had no idea that it would be running this long, for this length of time. Initially, I just started it for my wife, who wasn't my wife back then. She was my girlfriend. And her speaking ability and listening ability back then really wasn't that good at all. So whenever we would speak to each other, it would always be in Japanese. And one thing that I noticed helped my Japanese ability a lot was listening to podcasts. So I decided it would be a good idea to try making a podcast for her. And I wanted them to be small, like 10 minutes, short episodes that you could easily consume, easily listen to when you were doing, I don't know, a variety of things. If you were like on the train or going for a walk, or I don't know, washing dishes or something like that. It's just easy to like listen to one episode. If you've got a bit more time, listen to 2 episodes. So that is the reason why I got started doing this. And I would say that within a year, I noticed a huge improvement in my wife's English ability, because she went from not speaking English at all. Like I said, we were just communicating in Japanese all the time. She went from not speaking English to being able to speak English with me. So that was a huge improvement. And I know that this podcast was one of the things that really helped her. Helped her so much with her listening ability. Another thing that helped her, which I'll just mention briefly, is reading. And not a lot of reading. She just picked a book. Well, actually, I recommended a book for her. And it's not an advanced book or anything like that. It's actually aimed at children, probably children who are in secondary school. And it's a book that I remember a teacher reading to me when I was in secondary school. I mean, if you're interested in it, the name of the series of books is Mr. Magica. And it's, well, actually, I should spell that. It's Mr. and then Mageika. And it's a book about a wizard who goes to work in a school. But it's quite a short book, which is good. It doesn't take too long to get through. But even though, I mean, if you're thinking like, oh, well, it's just a book for secondary school children. In fact, I'm just looking at the back and I've noticed it's got like an age, like a recommended age, and it's for kids who are 7 years and above. So yeah, it's definitely aimed at young readers. But anyway, even so, it's quite surprising, like the amount of, I would say, reasonably complicated phrases that are in here, and words and descriptive language. There is a lot to learn. I mean, if you can already read this with no troubles at all, with no problem at all, I'll be very impressed. But this is the first book she ever tried to read, and she went through it and she made notes of so many things on all these different pages. Really, like, intensive reading. Really went through it properly. And once she'd put like the time and the effort into understanding like one page, she'd read it again. So that you're like the first time you read it, it's like you're learning like what does everything mean. The second time is a bit like revision, like you already know what everything means, so you're just reviewing it. So she did that. I don't think it was on like on a page by page basis. Maybe on a chapter, like get to chapter 1, do like intensive reading, and then reread chapter 1. And actually, the reason she did this was again my recommendation, because I had done exactly the same thing with the Japanese book. So these two things just helped her immensely. And it helped me immensely as well. And I'm still listening to podcasts. I still enjoy listening. I still love listening to podcasts. I still listen to some that are like this podcast, aimed at people who are learning English. But I also listen to like more complicated podcasts that are just aimed at native speakers. I still can't understand everything that's said in the episodes that are made for native speakers. But then again, if I could, I probably wouldn't need to study Japanese anymore. I'd probably be very close to the end of my goal. But I can understand enough to enjoy the episodes, certainly. And I still listen to, like I say, like podcasts like this one aimed at someone learning a language. Just for, I don't know, sometimes I just want to enjoy what I have learnt, I suppose. Like, I've spent a long time learning something and now I want to practice it. So I've spent a long time improving listening skills and I want to practice those listening skills, but maybe I just want it to be easy and fun. Whereas if I'm listening to a native podcast, it's more challenging. It's fun, definitely, but a lot more challenging, and maybe I need to pay more attention. So that's the reason I found that I still listen to podcasts like this one. But the way I use podcasts has certainly changed, and same as is true for my wife as well. In the beginning, when I started listening to Japanese podcasts, I could not understand. I was going to say I could not understand a single word, which isn't true. I could understand single words. That was the extent of my listening ability. I'd pick up this word. Ooh, I recognize that word. I couldn't make out sentences. And I know a lot of people think like, if I can't understand what's being said, there's no point in listening. But this really isn't true at all. I think if I didn't do that, it would have taken a long time for me to build up my listening skills. I think just listening and listening and listening, which is what I did, it just helped me become familiar with the sounds of the language, the rhythm of the language. It meant I was able to, easily pick out the breaks in the language, recognize how words are sort of slurred together, joined together when they're spoken. So many useful things you can pick up, even when you think you don't understand everything. And then as that ability grew, I began to make out sentences and, eventually progressed to understanding whole episodes, which is great. Now, at first, because I didn't, I wasn't able to understand much at all, I would listen to the same episode again and again and again, because it wasn't boring, because I didn't understand it yet. So sometimes I'd listen to it and I'd pick out some words and I'd listen to it again and I'd sort of remember, oh yeah, I recognized those words last time. But then I could hear more words on the next time I listened to it. Or when I could understand some sentences, when I'd progressed a bit, I'd listen again and it's like, ooh, I can understand more sentences. I don't do this anymore because I'm quite happy with the amount that I'm understanding. But certainly in the beginning and the sort of middle of that journey, a great tip I have is just listen multiple times. If you feel like you've understood 60%, I don't know, 50%, 60% or less, try listening 2 times, try listening 3 times to the same episode and see if you can understand any more. And another thing that I used to do, and again, I think this is really important, and there's definitely people listening to this podcast that don't do this. Another thing I did was I always went to the beginning of the podcast and listened to the episodes from the beginning of the podcast. And the reason I did this is because I wanted like a huge backlog, like a huge catalog of episodes that I could listen to. And that meant I could listen to an episode every single day, or 2 episodes every day, or 3 different episodes every day. So when I found a Japanese podcast and it was sort of like at the right level and it had hundreds of episodes, it was like, okay, I found some really useful like treasure here. This is a really great resource, a really great resource for learning a language. And because there's so many episodes, I can just start at the beginning and I can just have a new episode every day or 2 new episodes every day. But on the other hand, if I was to listen like from the latest episodes, maybe the person making the podcast only uploads 1 episode a week. So I could just listen once a week, which I don't think is enough listening practice at all. I think you need exposure to, well, English in your case. I think you need exposure to English every single day. And yes, even on the weekends, if you can manage it. I would listen like 7 days a week. And the minimum I would listen to would be like 10 minutes. But usually between 10 to 20 minutes. It depends what I was doing. On the weekends, I might listen less. I don't want to spend the whole weekend studying. But if I'm traveling to work or something, that time was just listening to podcasts all the time. And I really enjoyed it. And I suppose looking back to listening to those early episodes when I couldn't understand, I could just pick out words. And I progressed to the point where I can just listen to the whole episode and understand everything. That's amazing when I think back. That is amazing. And it's certainly one of the reasons why I continue making this podcast, because I know how much it helped me, and I think it would be nice to help others like that in the same way. I mean, as you know, if you've been listening to this podcast long enough, my career, my profession is a software developer, and I, especially of late, haven't got very much satisfaction out of doing that job. I always make products for other people, and I don't always make products, websites, web applications. I don't always make things that I agree with. I just have to make things that I'm told to make. I don't have a say in what it is that I do. This podcast is completely different. Different because I get a lot of satisfaction from making this podcast. I suppose I know that I'm doing something good, something worthwhile, something that people are benefiting from. I've had lots of contact, lots of emails and messages from people over 6 years I've been doing this, telling me how much the podcast has been helping with their English, with their listening abilities, and also learning new vocabulary, learning new phrases from it. So yes, I feel like it's a worthwhile thing. I feel like I'm giving something back to where, I suppose, I didn't know, like a contribution to the world. That sounds a bit too dramatic, but I mean, like I've created something, I've put something out there. People are finding it useful, and that makes me happy. That gives me a lot of satisfaction. So I suppose I should leave it there for this episode, and I'd just like to finish by saying a big thank you to everyone who is currently listening, because without you, this podcast wouldn't exist. Okay, until next time, bye-bye.